Let me ask you, at the number 4 pick, who do you see falling to the Knicks? Who should they take with who's going to be available at that point?
Well, I mean, at that spot, you're probably going to be looking at either D'Angelo Russell of Ohio State, Emmanuel Mudiay, who played last year in China, was supposed to go to SMU, played in high school in sort of the Dallas, Texas area, or probably Kristaps Porzingis, who is from Latvia, played in Spain. And there's Justice Winslow of Duke is also going to be there. Mm-hmm. So you got a choice. I mean, a lot of people that are saying the Porzingis kid is another Dirk Nowitzki. I don't happen to see that. He can really shoot it, though, and he's ultra talented and long-armed and very skilled. But I don't think he's as good of a rebounder, quite as tough as Nowitzki was at that age. But he's awfully, awfully good, and people I trust love him. I just haven't seen him in person. And, boy, it's been a long time since a foreign player has been really good. Since I saw this stat today, since Yao Ming was taken in 2002, number 1 in the draft, 19 foreign players, internationals, have been taken in the lottery, and not one of them has been an all-star.
Wow. It's such a crapshoot for sure. Now, Jay, the consensus seemed to be when they fell to 4 in the lottery that it was devastating. But do you think at 4 they can get an impact player, that's somebody they can move forward with, or was it devastating to you that they ended up with the 4th overall pick?
I don't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, it was either going to be 2 or 4. With one or two, with 2, you could probably, you're going to get either Karl Anthony Towns or Jahlil Okafor. And I happen to believe that Okafor is the best prospect. It's not by a lot, but I favor him over Karl Anthony Towns because he's so dominant in the low post. And, people forget, or maybe they didn't even know at all, that he got hurt. He really tore his ankle up pretty badly in the first Duke-Carolina game in early February, I think it was. And he was never the same after that. And if you watch this guy in practice and in games, he was the most dominant low-post player in the game. And it commanded a double team. And he's one of the few guys that, when he gets doubled, he just doesn't throw it out to the same side. He can throw a bullet opposite. But he's just not the dominant shot blocker that everybody wants him to be. And he's gotten beaten up because of his, some pick-and-roll defense deficiencies that he's got. But, Karl Anthony Towns is a little bit better of a defender. He's a better shot blocker and rim protector. But, he played 20 minutes a game last year and fouled out of 6 games. So it's not like he's without flaws or he's a sure thing as a perennial NBA All-Star. I happen to actually favor. I think they're both going to be excellent players. I just favor the dominant ability that Okafor's got, just a tad over what Towns has got. But at 4, to get somebody like Winslow, I mean, there's an argument to be made. If we really think the game has changed such that you wouldn't take Okafor number 1, well, why hasn't it changed such that you wouldn't take him number 2 or 3 or 4? So, what they're really talking about is guys like Russell, Mudiay, Winslow, maybe even Porzingis. They're more valuable now than they were 10 years ago. So that's where New York is going to fall. That's where they're going to get one of those guys, and maybe if guys do go bigger earlier, that leaves them with the kind of player that people are saying is going to be better in today's game.
I don't know how much you've seen of Mudiay. He is a real wild card because, didn't play against great competition last year. We never saw him in college. He was dominant in high school where Larry Brown said he was one of the best players he'd ever seen. So what is this guy, Jay? What is Mudiay?
He's a dynamic point guard in the. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's as dynamic and athletic as Derrick Rose because he's not, but he's a playmaker and he can get into the lane and really attacks the rim. One of his he was to be his assistant coach, Tim Jankovic at SMU. One of the things he told me early on about him was, he's one of those guys where the game slows down for him. And people talk about his shooting. Look, he's not a great shooter. He's not the same kind of shooter that D'Angelo Russell is, but his shot isn't broken or anything. He's improved as a shooter, and he makes shots, and I think he's going to continue to get better in that area. That's one area where guys that have decent mechanics can really improve, and I think he'll do that. And, he played in China. He played at a high level. Now, the one thing, in China, they don't really guard anybody, but, it's not like in certain areas of the United States they're all defensively oriented either. This kid can play. He's the real deal. And I think he's a legit top 5 pick. So it gives New York something to consider. I would have a hard time turning down Justice Winslow just because of he's long-armed, he's athletic, he's great in transition, and he can really defend. and he does a good job rebounding. And I think he's going to be a good scorer in the NBA.
Does his size
really
concern you, Jay? Or lack thereof? He's like a Barkley type, right?
Well, it does. Well, no, he's not that type of player, as you know.
No, I mean same size, 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah, well, he's about 6'6" in shoes.
Right.
And the old joke is everybody plays in shoes, but he didn't measure out as tall as people thought, but his arms are really long. He's got one of those 6'10", 6'11" wingspans, and he's so dynamic. I mean, when he's in the open floor, especially defensively, he's gotten some of those LeBron-style blocks in transition where you look like you're going to give up a layup or a dunk, and he just wipes it away or pins it on the backboard. And I think he's got the capacity to get better and better. When he got to college, I thought he was a little bit like James Harden when he first got to Arizona State. And Coach K had told me, he says, no, he's Dwayne Wade. And he didn't say he's like Dwayne Wade. He said, no, he's Dwayne Wade. And Coach K is not an exaggerator in talent evaluation. He loved him from the beginning. And Winslow was everything he said he was going to be and then some as a freshman. And I think he's got a lot of room to get better. It's just a hard analysis with some of these guys that, may have bloomed already. You're going to go, well, this guy's, he's a late bloomer, but he bloomed. And then you've got to try to project, well, is this guy going to bloom to be even better than the one who's already bloomed? Those are the tough calls to make in this draft.
Talking to our very own Jay Bilas here on the Michael Kay Show. The other aspect of the Knicks is wanting to play the triangle, fitting into the triangle. How big of a problem is it for these kids as they get drafted to know that that's a system they're going to have to learn and excel at?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think when you can play in any system. And, it's not that I know the triangle backwards and forwards. I've looked at it. Tex Winter was the coach at Long Beach State when I was coming out of high school. And so I know just enough about the triangle to be dangerous. And I just don't think it requires some sort of basketball aptitude that most players don't have. If you're really good, you're going to do well. And if you're an unselfish player that can play without the ball, and that's really, guys, what I think the issue is in today's game. I think the players are better than they've ever been. They're more skilled than they've ever been. They're more athletic. But with the way they're brought up in the game, there's a lot of individual coaching that goes on. So they do a lot of individual work. And with that individual work, at the end of it, you're going to get an individual. But what it means is they've got the ball in their hands all the time. So most of what they're processing is after they get the ball rather than before. So, like for a young player, you're trying to teach him on defense, play your man before he gets the ball. On offense, you're trying to teach them to do positive things before they get the ball so that they can score before they get it. Most players are catching it, and then they're going to they're going to do their little Kobe series or Tim Duncan series in the post or the Kevin Durant series and all these moves, when if they could move without the ball, they'd be much better off.